Hi there everyone, and thanks for tuning into this week's edition of the Warm-Up Lap here on Backchurch Banter, the first edition on YouTube as well as the regular podcast show. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is very exciting to be able to finally get this content onto YouTube for you guys. And we had a jam-packed race weekend from Richmond Raceway last weekend, so let's jump right into the racing action from there, starting with the NASCAR Xfinity Series. We're in the return of Dale Earnhardt Jr. He almost, and I mean almost by a fraction, ended up with him in victory lane in his Junior Motorsports Hellman's number 88 Chevrolet Camaro. But after a late race restart, it wasn't meant to be, as the number 20 of Christopher Bell went on to win the Go Bowling 250 last Friday night from Richmond Raceway, giving him the season sweep at Richmond in his number 20 car, as well as locking him into the next round of the NASCAR Xfinity Series playoffs. Now on to the Monster Energy Cup Series, where it was the number 4 of Kevin Harvick who was able to lead the field to the green flag after winning the pole, and his outside pole sitter, the number 11 of Denny Hamlin, had some issues early on getting some contact from the 17 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and after lots of beating and banging down the straights of Richmond Raceway last Saturday night, it was a battle between the number 2 of Brad Keselowski and the number 18 of Kyle Busch very late in the going last Saturday in the Federated Auto Parts 400, with the number 18 of Kyle Busch being able to make the pass on the number 2 of Brad Keselowski and take his 7th victory of the Monster Energy Cup Series season, winning last Saturday's Federated Auto Parts 400 from Richmond Raceway. It was definitely a very exciting race to watch. Congratulations to Kyle on getting that 7th victory and locking himself in to the next round of the Monster Energy Cup Series playoffs, which starts next weekend after this weekend's races from Charlotte. Now to jump into some NASCAR penalty news. There was only a little bit of penalty news from last weekend at Richmond Raceway, as the only penalty news came from the racetrack last weekend, as Monster Energy Cup Series race winner Kyle Busch was found to have a lug nut not properly secured following the race, which results in a $10,000 fine for his crew chief Adam Stevens. As there was one other penalty last weekend, that penalty came down in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, also in post-race inspection, as the number 20 car of Christopher Bell, who won the Go Bowling 250 on Friday night, was also found to have a lug nut not properly secured following the race, and his crew chief Jason Ratcliffe has been fined $5,000 for the incident. All right, now jumping into some other news announced just the other day from GMS Racing. We actually have 2 driver announcements from GMS Racing for the end of the Camping World Truck Series season, as it was announced just the other day that Sheldon Creed will be taking over the newly formed number 28, which was formerly the number 2 truck, for the final 4 races in the Camping World Truck Series season at GMS Racing, after it was announced earlier in the week that Cody Coughlin, much the same as what happened with Dalton Sargent a couple weeks ago, will not be finishing out the season in that number 2 truck, with Spencer Gallagher racing that truck at Talladega before Creed takes over for the final 4 weeks of the season. Now, also announced through GMS Racing is that Tyler Dipple will pilot the number 25 Camping World Truck Series entry for GMS Racing for the same final 4 races of the 2018 season as Sheldon Creed. Now, Dalton Sargent had piloted the truck through the regular season, but since has left the organization to pursue other opportunities following what was believed to be a dispute between his management team and GMS Racing over the equipment that he was in at GMS Racing, saying that he didn't think he was in the same level, the best equipment that they have there at GMS Racing. Now, sticking with the Camping World Truck Series, this one actually was very surprising to hear about earlier in the week, as a warrant was issued for a NASCAR Camping World Truck Series driver, an arrest warrant. As you heard me right there, an arrest warrant has been issued for the arrest of Jordan Anderson, driver of the number 3 truck for the team that he owns at Jordan Anderson Racing. Following it was learned that one of the trucks that he has was stolen from Mike Harmon. Now, when I first read this, I thought it was one of the trucks that he uses to pull his trailer or something like that to the racetrack. But after further reading on the incident, it was indeed one of the chassis that Jordan Anderson has been running in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series this season that was stolen, meaning that the truck that was on the track in Las Vegas could have been that stolen chassis. Now, I'm not jumping to any conclusions here, as from what I know, last season Harmon allowed Anderson to work out of his race shop while he was starting up his team, and this could be a matter that is sorted out rather quickly between the two of them outside of court, as it could be pertaining to equipment that Anderson thought was his but really isn't his, obviously. But nonetheless, I was very surprised to hear of this the other day, and I will be interested to see how NASCAR handles this whole situation with Jordan Anderson and Mike Harmon. Obviously, it was very surprising to hear that this was the case. I've never heard of this happening before, with a chassis having been stolen from a team. I've heard of trucks being stolen, cars being stolen, pace cars being stolen, but I've never heard of a chassis that could potentially have been run just a couple weeks ago at Las Vegas, having been stolen from another team. It's definitely very interesting to see that interesting to see this in the news. Obviously, it's not a very good thing to see in the news for NASCAR's sake, but it was very weird in a sense to see that, especially Jordan Anderson's name was tied to this incident that happened. From some other details that I did know, that I found out from reading the article about this, was that Anderson was scheduled to surrender himself to the police on September 20th. But as we all know, his truck on the way back from Las Vegas Motor Speedway hit an elk along the way, and he was kind of incapacitated on the side of the road for a couple of days there. So that could have played a factor into why this is all coming out now, and that he did not surrender himself to police back then. But I do believe he also was, that he could have also been acting on the advice of an attorney as well there. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but it's definitely very weird to hear about this incident going on, and it will be definitely interesting to see how NASCAR handles this situation with Jordan Anderson and Mike Harmon. All right, guys, now let's jump into some silly season news, where I do have some major driver announcements that were made just this week from Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is really the week that usually these announcements come out, the hometown track, so it's a lot easier to have the press conferences at your hometown track. And let's start with the JTG Daugherty Racing announcement, and here's what they had to say.
I'm here on behalf of Ernie and Jody Geschichter in the back of the room, and our partners Brad Doherty and Gordon Smith, to say we're very pleased to announce that Ryan Preece is becoming a part of the JTG Doherty family to drive for us beginning Daytona 2019. Really excited to see what we can do together.
Now, earlier this week, it was announced that AJ Allmendinger would not be returning to the number 47 JTG Daugherty Chevrolet Camaro next season. And as of this weekend, we now know who will be filling his seat. As you just heard, that Ryan Preece will be moving up full-time to the Monster Energy Cup Series as of next season in that 47 car. Now, this is huge news and exciting news as well, as we all kind of know the process that Preece has went through to get to this point, to this ride, leaving a full-time ride in the Xfinity Series to take a part-time one at a top-tier team, specifically at Joe Gibbs Racing, and going out there and winning races, competing in every start that he made. And in all honesty, this makes a lot of sense for that team and is an extremely smart hire for them on the JTG Daugherty part. Obviously, I think that Preece knows how to wheel a car like none other, and this is definitely that. Now, they aren't necessarily in the best equipment there at JTG Daugherty Racing. However, that could change next year, as also in this announcement, they announced that they will move over to Hendrick Motorsports engines next season in their Chevrolets, which means that their cars will entirely be coming from Hendrick Motorsports, as their chassis and bodies currently already do come from Hendrick Motorsports. But they did have a partnership with ECR Engines for this season that they were finishing out before heading over to the Hendrick Motorsports motor department for next season, for the 2019 season. So that move of moving over to Hendrick Motorsports Engines, as well as the move of bringing Ryan Preece in, I believe helps increase the stock of JTG Daugherty Racing for next season. And I think they actually are going to be a pretty good competitive team next season, with him and Chris Buescher fielding the two cars over at that race team. Now, also another bit of confirmed driver news, this one coming from Richard Childress Racing, and here is what they had to say.
Good afternoon and welcome. We're glad to be here today to share publicly the latest news from the Richard Childress Racing camp. First, we would be remiss if we didn't thank Marcus Smith, Greg Walter, Scott Cooper, and the entire team here at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the hospitality. As always, it's definitely going to be an interesting weekend of racing. I can just about attest to that. So to kick things off, I'd like to introduce the three gentlemen sitting to my right. First and foremost, Richard Childress, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Richard Childress Racing. And of course, the guy in the middle over there, Daniel Hemrick. And lastly, on the end, Richard Childress Racing's President, Tori Galida. Tori, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I would like to echo your thanks to everybody here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Scott, thank you for the hospitality. And thank you to all of you for being here today. We appreciate it. I am extremely happy to be able to end 6 months of speculation about where Daniel Hemrick is going to end up in 2019. So Daniel will be driving the Richard Childress Racing number 31 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 in 2019. You know, at RCR, Richard and the RCR team have had really a great record of success at bringing up young drivers through the Xfinity Series and making a number of them really successful at the Cup level. In fact, 3 of those drivers are here this weekend and competing for a Cup Series championship this year. So we're all justifiably proud of that and really proud to have Daniel as the latest member of that group. So Daniel, congratulations, and on behalf of everybody at RCR and ECR, we're really proud to have you and Kenzie remain a part of the RCR family.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's unbelievable to see how starting here so many years ago has led to this point, and it's going to be an honor to continue down this path over the next, hopefully, couple of years, and just to be able to give the shot. So thanks, Tori, thanks, Richard, thanks all of our staff at RCR, everyone here at Charlotte Motor Speedway for giving us the time to talk about this, and I'm just incredibly humbled and honored to know that, all those nights and all those, excuse me, I'm all choked up here. So it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Richard, chime in there. Go ahead. Say a few remarks if you would.
Yeah. I'm really proud of this day. I know a lot of you's asked around, asked me, who's driving, what are you doing? I've been watching Daniel since he was a young boy over here. I call him a boy back in the day. Him, Austin, and Ty were all racing Bandoliers, Legends, those cars. And I've seen then the talent that Daniel had. And to get him on, Austin and Ty both have been for years trying to get him to drive for us and to get him on the Xfinity cars and to see his talent. And now to be able to make the largest move of his career, to put him in a Cup car. I think back at the other drivers like, Clint Boyer, Kevin Harvick, Austin Dillon, Ty. These are the drivers that I looked at their talent when they were very young and was fortunate to put them in cars and be able to go out and win races and do what they do best. And I think Daniel falls right in that line with those guys because he has all the talent it takes to win. He will be a winner. He will be racing for championships in the Cup Series in the future. So, Daniel, couldn't be prouder of you, buddy, to have you here.
Thank you. It means the world.
Now, also announced on the same day as the Ryan Preece deal to the number 47, Richard Childress Racing also had a huge announcement to make of their own, as we've known for a couple of weeks now that Ryan Newman will not be returning to the number 31 car at Richard Childress Racing for next season. But we do now know who will be replacing him at RCR as driver of the number 21 Xfinity Series car. Daniel Hemrick has been announced as the new driver of the number 31 car in the Monster Energy Cup Series for the 2019 season. Now, this is awesome news for the kid from Kannapolis, as he grew up racing alongside Richard Childress' 2 grandsons, Austin and Ty Dillon, and has always been good friends with them. So it is really cool to see that all of these guys are really kind of on the same team. Obviously, relatively speaking, of course, as Ty Dillon is over at Germain Racing, who is an affiliate team of Richard Childress Racing. Now, I was very happy to see that one of my favorite drivers from the NASCAR Xfinity Series in Daniel Hemrick was getting the nod for this move up, despite the fact that he is yet to win in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. But he is one hell of a race car driver, so much like the Ryan Preece deal. This is definitely a huge boost for Richard Childress Racing stable for the 2019 season. And now heading to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Now, this one is now officially confirmed. But we did know, I kind of knew that this was going to happen about a month ago, as earlier this week, and this one we've kind of, like I said, we've kind of known unofficially for the last month or so, but it is now official that Camping World Truck Series driver Noah Gragson will be moving to the NASCAR Xfinity Series full-time for the 2019 season, taking over the number 1 car that is being left vacant by the retiring Elliott Sadler at Junior Motorsports. Now, this is a huge move, not only for Junior Motorsports, who is getting an amazing driver and one of the most personable drivers on the racetrack and off the racetrack. Now, with these dominoes now falling, that means that there are really only a few seats left remaining that are still available for the 2019 season, with those including potentially the number 19 car, but as we know, Martin Truex Jr. is rumored to be heading there alongside of his crew chief, Cole Pearn, after Furniture Row Racing announced a few weeks ago that they would be shutting down at the end of the season. Now, of course, that means that puts a driver out onto the streets, and that is the current driver of the number 19 of Daniel Suarez. But the next car that I'm going to list, I think, is going to be the landing spot for him, as the number 41 car at Stewart-Haas Racing is also going to be available. Now, we all know that essentially Kurt Busch is out of that car. No official announcement has been made of that yet, but based off of Gene Haas's comments from a couple weeks ago at Las Vegas, that is essentially the case, that Kurt Busch is out of that car. And now with Daniel Suarez being ousted from Joe Gibbs Racing by Martin Truex Jr., I believe that Suarez will be the favorite to fill that number 41 car, as Daniel, among the drivers that are available, Daniel really is the youngest out of them all that has the most upside still of his career. And in all honesty, this could be a Joey Logano type move for Daniel Suarez. Joey Logano, as you know, took over for Stewart-Haas Racing co-owner Tony Stewart when he decided to leave Joe Gibbs Racing when he raced the number 20 Home Depot car to form his own team at Stewart-Haas Racing. Logano filled that seat and then moved on to Team Penske, where he went on to thrive. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if Suarez can have a similar career trajectory as Joey Logano if he does end up making that move to the number 41 car at Stewart-Haas Racing. Now, another car that we still haven't heard, I haven't really heard any rumblings about who could potentially be filling this car, is the number 95 car at Levine Family Racing, as we don't yet know what direction that team is going for the 2019 season, as they are rumored to be heading to Toyota in an alliance similar to what Furniture Row Racing has with Joe Gibbs Racing. So that could be a potential landing spot for maybe Trevor Bayne if he's looking for a full-time ride in the Monster Energy Cup Series. It's not a top-tier ride, but he will have some good equipment there, as well as there could be a couple other drivers as well, maybe including Matt DiBenedetto in that conversation as well, if they do form a second team, which is what has been rumored for a couple of weeks now. Toyota even came out saying that they believe they'll be supporting more than 5 Monster Energy Cup Series cars for the 2019 season. Now, another car that is rumored to have an empty seat, but that seat should be filled, is the number 1 car at Chip Ganassi Racing. Now, this is the rumored spot that Kurt Busch will be heading to. Now, this has been the rumor since Michigan. I actually heard this while I was down in Michigan covering my first Monster Energy Cup Series race. So I think we're all at the point now where we're just kind of waiting on that official announcement from Kurt Busch and Chip Ganassi on when Kurt Busch will be taking over that number 1 car for the 2019 season. I believe it is going to happen. Obviously, Kurt Busch brings some sponsorship money with him in Monster Energy, so it'll definitely be interesting to see if there are any other sponsors that Kurt Busch brings along with him to Chip Ganassi Racing for the 2019 season, if that is indeed where he is going to end up. And then finally, the final one that I want to talk about this week is the number 32 at Go Fast Racing. Now, as we know, Matt DiBenedetto has announced a while back that he would be leaving the team at the end of the season to pursue other opportunities. Now, to me, DiBenedetto isn't that bad of a driver, and I could see him, like I was just talking about him, heading to either that 95 car for next season or potentially to their second team if they do indeed field 2 cars next season. I don't really know who would fill that seat at Go Fast Racing. It could end up becoming one of those part-time seats where we see drivers like Joey Gase and Landon Castle and drivers like that fill the seat on multiple race deals with certain sponsors. Obviously, Landon Castle has a good thing going at Starcom Racing in the 00 car there for them. So it'll be interesting to see who kind of fills out that seat at Go Fast Racing for the 2019 season. All right, guys. Well, now it's time for the NASCAR Fantasy Minute for this week's edition, this weekend's races. But first, I want to take you to the classroom, as GMS Racing put out an amazing video on what this weekend's racetrack is, featuring none other than Spencer Gallagher, driver of the number 23 GMS Racing Chevrolet in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, as the professor. So let's take a look.
What's going on, people? I'm Spencer Gallagher, and today we're going to Roval School. What's a Roval, you ask? There's a lot of confusion on that subject. Is it an oval? Is it a road course? The answer, yes and no. Let's find out. So, the first thing that you need if you're going to have a Roval is an oval. Very important. can't have a roval without an oval. So what separates your ordinary road course from a roval is that once this oval part is included, you kind of make a little track in here and race around this, which makes it very, very different, very difficult to do this, by the way. And should make for some great, exciting action for the fans.
That's not the layout. That's not even close.
What have I been studying? Upon further consultation with my team of experts, I've realized that that is not at all what the Charlotte Roval looks like. So here's a little more accurate diagram. And while we're on that subject, something us drivers like to do whenever we go to a new racetrack is to give some of the turns names. Helps us remember them, not get lost around there. Easy to do. So I've taken the liberty of giving the Charlotte Roval turns a few of my own names, and here they are. Turn 1 will henceforth be known as Please Stop. As we head up the track into Turn 2, we're going to be calling that Tournade 2, or as the French say, Turn 2. Moving along, we're going to be heading into the Blue Shell Pickup Zone. Very important to hit that every lap to gain an advantage. Up around to the first part of the oval, we're going to be heading here to the backstretch where we come to the Chiropractor. The adjustments are free, but the race cars are not. Moving along, we head into the second section of the oval, or as it shall be known, the speedy bit. Very important to go fast there, contrary to popular belief. And heading into the last corner, we're going to go ahead and call that Put It Out. Thank you. My name's Spencer Gallagher, and this has been a diagram of the Charlotte Roval.
Now that's right, folks, this weekend is the long-awaited debut of NASCAR's newest circuit, the Charlotte Roval. Now for my picks this week, it is going to be an interesting one, as with no previous races here on this layout, I have no stats to look at, so this weekend I am going to be winging it, starting with the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Now there are a lot of good road course racers in the NASCAR Xfinity Series field this weekend, including the likes of Cole Custer, Elliott Sadler, and Brendan Gaughan, just to name a few. But there is one driver who just got a new ride that I think is going to make a splash this weekend with his first NASCAR Xfinity Series win. As my pick to win the Drive for the Cure 200 presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield North Carolina is the number 21 of Daniel Hemrick. And now on to the Monster Energy Cup Series Fantasy Live lineup for this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. My playoff drivers for this weekend are going to be the number 88 of Alex Bowman, who has proceeded to qualify himself in third place and actually looked pretty good on the racetrack from what I saw during the practice sessions and the qualifying session earlier as well. And the number 41 of Kurt Busch, who is the pole sitter for this weekend's race at the Charlotte Roval. My non-playoff drivers are going to be the number 47 of AJ Allmendinger, who is your second place starter, your outside pole sitter for the Bank of America 400 at the Roval this weekend. The number 19 of Daniel Suarez is going to be my other non-playoff driver, as Suarez has a very strong background on the road course circuits, going back to Watkins Glen and Sonoma. And my backup driver for this weekend is going to be the number 8 of Daniel Hemrick, who proceeded to qualify himself in 11th place in his RCR Chevrolet for this weekend's race. My pole winner, obviously I can't pick it because pole winner, the pole qualifying has already happened with the 41 of Kurt Busch winning that pole. But my stage 1 winner and my stage 2 winner are going to be that same car in the number 41 of Kurt Busch. But however, I am going somewhere else with my race winning pick. As my race winning pick, my winning manufacturer is going to be a Chevrolet. And my pick to win the inaugural Bank of America Roval 400 from the Charlotte Roval this weekend is a surprise pick to get his first win at Hendrick Motorsports and in the Monster Energy Cup Series, the number 88 of Alex Bowman. Now, alright guys, that is going to do it for this week's edition of the Warm-Up Lap here on Backstretch Banner, the first YouTube edition of the Warm-Up Lap here on Backstretch Banner. As always, you can find the podcast available on all the major podcast providers, including Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and of course Blog Talk Radio. You can find all the links to my social media sites on my website, www.backstretchbanter.com. Hit the subscribe and like button down below if you like this episode, and I will see you guys next week as we head into the round of 12 for the Monster Energy Cup Series playoffs.